Thank you everyone for joining today for our discussion on recent trends from the Mosaic Homeowner Journey to Electrification study conducted earlier this year. Today, we'll talk about motivators and concerns, generational insights, satisfaction, tax incentives, and what homeowners are planning to purchase next. An introduction for our guests today, Billy Parrish and Ari Matusiak. Billy Parrish is founder and executive chair of Mosaic, and a special thank you to Ari, who is CEO of Rewiring America, co-founder and managing partner of Purpose Ventures Group, and I'm Christine Gately-Evans, SVP of Marketing for Mosaic. A bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please note that the information presented today is provided for informational and educational purposes only. The information related to the IRA and its applicability is based on the presenter's understanding of how the Inflation Reduction Act will be implemented as of today. Homeowners' ability to obtain any particular tax credit described herein is limited by their ability to meet eligibility requirements. None of the information provided constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. Recording and pictures are strictly prohibited. We surveyed over 1,000 homeowners who purchased or intend to purchase electrification products across the U.S. through an online questionnaire and focused on the list of 10 electrification products, including electric vehicles that you see on the right of the screen. I'd like to kick off our discussion today with the timeliness of these insights with Billy. Billy?
Thanks, Christine, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We recently celebrated the one-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the most significant climate policy in US history. A lot of people don't realize, but the IRA was specifically designed to spur consumer adoption of clean energy and electric vehicles through a range of tax credits, rebates, and other incentives. And yet 2/3 of Americans know little or nothing at all about the IRA or these incentives. Mosaic funded this study to better understand homeowner behaviors and how we can help more households adopt these solutions. Why does this matter? First, 42% of US energy emissions come from decisions that we make around the kitchen table, about the machines we have in our homes and driveways and how we power them. Second, homeowners who adopt these technologies can save thousands of dollars per year and improve the comfort and value of their homes. We also know that 97% of US homes are more than 10 years old and will need updates and repairs. And higher mortgage rates are causing more homeowners to choose to renovate their current home rather than move to a new home. So more than half of US homeowners are planning renovations over the next year. So there's this massive opportunity to help homeowners make the right clean energy choices in their home improvement projects.
We got a lot of great data out of the study and insights and have 3 phases of the journey to share. Let's start at the beginning of the homeowner journey. Can you tell us, Billy, a little bit more? Where do homeowners start?
Sure. And I'll admit I was a little surprised by the findings. I'd always thought that homeowners started with solar and then bought an EV or vice versa. But based on the survey results, it appears that more homeowners are starting with a smaller step, often replacing an electric appliance like a stove or a clothes dryer. And while many of the consumers we surveyed weren't looking to electrify their entire home, that first step often leads to other steps to come. So the study found that after replacing or upgrading one product, it was often followed by another electric purchase, like a heat pump or an electrical panel upgrade. Next on the list was solar and electric tankless water heaters. So there's an education opportunity at this early stage about the benefits of electrification, not just that one purchase, but the broader opportunity, the multiple purchases that can have climate and home value and comfort benefits. And that education is especially powerful online. Internet searches and customer reviews were the top two sources when people were researching and making decisions about these products.
So consumers appear to start to kind of dip their toes into the home electrification journey and then continue down the path. Ari, is this also true in what you've seen in your role?
Thanks, Christine, and it's great to be here today and really appreciate Mosaic's leadership on all of this and creating the space for this important conversation. I think what Billy just said is important in terms of how people show up, which is that electrifying the machines that we use in our day-to-day lives. It's really more of a journey and meeting people where they are than it is about prescribing one set of things for everybody to do. And that makes sense, right? Because the machines that we rely on to heat the air and water in our homes, how we cook our food, how we dry our clothes, what kind of cars we drive, how we get our power, those things have their own lifetimes and their own life cycles. And so when your water heater conks out, you're going to replace your water heater. When you're worried that your dryer is getting a little less good at drying the clothes, you're going to look at maybe replacing that machine and getting a new appliance. And so it's really about meeting people where they are and helping them understand what the options are, because ultimately these efficient electric machines are just hands down better than the fossil fuel alternatives in every instance. They're better performing, they save more money, they provide better results. And so it's really about meeting people where they are and then starting to connect the one decision to the ones that come after. So as an example, if someone is getting an electric car and they're deciding to charge at home and installing a charger in their garage, there's an opportunity when the electrician is at the house installing that charger to put a 240 volt outlet where the water heater or where the furnace are, so to enable that next step to happen when the time comes. Because there's one thing that is definitely true, which is that the more things that we electrify in our homes, the easier it is to electrify the next thing and the thing after that. And that's why we're building a bunch of tools to help people navigate and go on that journey for themselves. We'll be releasing a beta version of an electrification planning tool that takes information about your home and what you're trying to do and helps you navigate what the next thing is and what the thing after that might be. And also maximizing the incentives that people are eligible for, which is another thing that people don't know about. So as long as we kind of don't try to prescribe stuff to people and just sort of help them figure out what the next decision should be, that's really the way to go about this.
Bill, you mentioned that you were a little surprised that solars and EVs weren't higher on the list of first purchases. Can you tell us a little bit about what the survey found when it comes to consumers' planned purchases and installing solar panels?
Sure. It was reassuring that the survey supported what we do know about why people adopt solar. Solar is economical in most states across the country. There are a couple states that have very low cost electricity or very little sunshine, but today solar offers day one savings in 80% of American households compared to 25% of households in 2014. So that's been the big story of solar over the last 10 years. It's gotten cheaper and cheaper and more affordable compared to the utility alternative. And so for both solar and tankless electric water heaters, we found that saving money was the number one reason people adopted these solutions, and doing something positive for the planet was the second key driver. So homeowners at this stage are investing and saving. Owned solar systems can increase home values by $20 for every dollar saved on your utility bill. So if you save $700 a year with solar, the value of your home should increase by $14,000. Overall, solar and other electrification upgrades can improve home value and comfort while also providing these cost savings.
The data we found at this stage presents insights that we didn't really anticipate. And defining generations has to do with birth year, and also is based largely on how experiences while growing up, especially in formative years, help shape perceptions. Billy, how do these insights compare to what you understand about generations?
Yeah, this was less surprising, but still, I thought really interesting. So probably folks here won't be surprised to hear that homeowners under the age of 45 are more likely to consider purchasing all electric products in the coming year. They're also more concerned about climate change and more likely to take actions to minimize their impact on the climate. What I think most folks probably don't realize is that this under 45 age group is the largest US demographic and the fastest growing demographic of homeowners. There was a recent study from the National Association of Realtors that showed that millennials aged 27 to 42 made up 43% of home buyers in 2022, up from 37% just the year previous. So this segment and their increasing focus on climate really matters. They also have high online use. So to the earlier point about educating people online about these opportunities, contractors, media, all of us here should be taking the opportunity to communicate the benefit of electrification online. Ari, I'm curious if you're seeing similar trends in the data that you all are collecting at Rewiring America.
Yeah, definitely. We launched a calculator tool at rewiringamerica.org on the day that President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law to help people figure out what incentives they would be eligible for under that law to replace the machines that we're talking about. And we haven't spent $1 marketing that tool. It's really only been advertised, as it were, through press coverage and people sharing it with one another on social media. And over the last year, 600,000 households across the country in every zip code in the United States have looked at that tool and used it, which tells you something that maybe is obvious, but I think also revealing. What the obvious part is, people actually are interested in finding out what kind of money they're eligible for and how they can access stuff that helps make their purchases less expensive. But there's really significant interest. People are spending more than 3 minutes on the tool on average, reading a bunch of articles about the various appliances. After EVs on that tool, heat pumps are the thing that people are the most interested in and spending the most time on. And again, it makes sense because these are purchases that are upgrades, as you just said, to people's homes that also have the benefit of saving people money on their energy bills. And that's also why we're really focused on trying to educate households, because the more households are asking questions about these technologies and are interested in them as options, it's also a signal to contractors that these are machines that are important for them to know how to sell and install themselves. And so that's a big piece of this. And the last thing I'll just say is there's a sort of climate part of this, of course, which is that we have to get at these machines if we're going to address the climate crisis, because 42% of our energy related emissions come from them. And the headline here is that we need to be going faster than we are in terms of adopting these technologies. And there's sort of like a pace of progress that we can think about that we all need to be moving on. And that just thinking about sort of what the market is selling year over year versus where we need to be from a climate perspective. And so if you zoom out a little bit, we need to be going faster. And we have been benchmarking that data at Rewiring and did so nationally. And in the coming days, we'll be releasing a report that shows how fast we need to be moving in every county in the United States. But I think what's really important is that at the household level, it's just about the next thing. It's not about speeding up purchases if you care about climate. It's just about replacing something when it's time to replace it, and doing that with this better electric alternative.
Ari, you were just talking about, homeowner awareness of the positive impacts of electric products on the environment. And I'm curious, Billy, how you think about this group of homeowners, kind of the early adopter group.
Yeah, they're playing a really important role in the transition. They are getting us to economies of scale in manufacturing, helping drive down costs, and helping bring it to the mainstream. And the rise of EVs is one of the most hopeful things that I've been seeing in the energy transition. And since most EV owners charge at home, they see their electricity usage increase by 50% on average. So we see a lot of folks adopting EVs and then wanting home EV charging, battery storage, and rooftop solar, which is sort of a great package for homeowners. Helpful that battery costs are decreasing, which is great for homeowners who want backup power, particularly in areas where there are climate events, hurricanes, floods, fires, etc. And I love the pace of progress report, Ari, that you all put out. I found it super interesting and helpful. It shows on EVs, we need to increase EV sales by 7 times over current rates by 2032 to meet US climate goals. So, today, 2% of total cars on the road are electric vehicles, and we need to increase that rapidly. And again, all those things are going to come together. So as they buy those EVs, they're going to want all these other things in their homes. And for this segment, I think they are early adopters. They aren't thinking just about sort of the savings opportunity. They are thinking more holistically. They're focused on other benefits beyond just cost savings. So I think it's important, again, to your point, Ari, about meeting people where they are, to speak to the broader opportunity with this segment in particular. I think they're more ready to see all of the dots connecting and want to sort of do the full journey.
That gets us into a little bit more about purchase concerns. And there's a direct correlation here with leveraging savings through the IRA. And Ari, hoping you can help kind of review the education that Rewiring America, the team, is doing up about the different benefits of electrification and how you're framing that up.
Sure. So there really is a direct correlation to the Inflation Reduction Act and leveraging savings. And I think there's again, it starts with people's motivations. A lot of people are interested in getting, if they're trying to replace something that's broken, they first and foremost want to have something that works. So that there's a motivation there, so that the family can take a hot shower or stay warm or cool or whatever the case might be. And that's one thing to sort of note. But there's really also other motivations around household savings, comfort, health and safety. People are motivated by climate and pollution impacts, and once they connect the dots between their purchase decisions and what what they can do, it starts to become more important for them. And then taking advantage of these really generational investments that were made for the benefit of people's homes. And I think there's, Billy said it at the top, but it bears repeating probably over and over again, which is that with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, from our perspective, U.S. climate strategy has basically become a consumer strategy, because we really are creating a series of incentives to help people purchase these better electric alternative machines that go right at lowering and lessening our climate impacts. And decarbonizing the economy overall. And so it really is critically important that we start to center it this way. If you really embrace this idea that our climate strategy is a consumer strategy, then educating people about these benefits becomes critically important. And there's another reason for that, which is that most of what's in the Inflation Reduction Act is actually uncapped. So there is there's an aspect of this, which is that if the more homeowners who are educated, the more people who are taking advantage, the more the Inflation Reduction Act will spend on these technologies that are good for families, good for communities, and good for the planet. By the way, they're also great for the economy because they create jobs that can't be automated or offshored. And so our analysis is that actually, if we follow along with that pace of progress and people replace the machines that are conking out with efficient electric ones when the time comes, the Inflation Reduction Act would spend $567 billion on residential electrification alone over the next decade. That's compared to the projection by the Congressional Budget Office that bill would spend $369 billion in total over 10 years. It does more than just residential electrification. So it just gives you a sense of how much potential is in that policy and how important it is to connect people to these dollars, because they can reduce the amount of money that households can access over $20,000 in incentives over the life of the Inflation Reduction Act. It's really a pretty powerful and incredible piece of policy tied to people's pocketbooks and homes. So I guess I could say one other piece about this, which is how the rebate programs operate, and to give sort of a couple of examples. So here you have the Inflation Reduction Act is sort of divided up between a couple of different streams. There are the tax credits, which I mentioned, which are available to people who have tax appetite and which are available now. Then there are a couple of rebate programs that are here that will be rolling out through state energy offices over the coming year. And these are really tied to households who are low to moderate income households, people making up to 150% of area median income, which doesn't mean anything to most people. So just to say, inclusive of first responders and teachers and folks like that in communities who are working families who are eligible for these rebates. And these are point of sale rebates that allow people to take up to $14,000 of incentive just to buy down the cost of these machines. So for example, if someone was getting a heat pump, they would be eligible for an $8,000 rebate if they met the income requirements. But at the same time, they could also access another $4,000 to upgrade their electric panel, and then also do $1,600 worth of insulation. And so these things can be combined. And so these programs are going to start rolling out over the coming year, and they will really be a big catalyst for adoption across the country. And here you have an example of how this plays out in a household in Los Angeles, and how many homes could benefit as a result. And so again, the number of households that get to participate is capped by the availability of dollars in these rebate programs, but it's really also capped by how aware people are of the opportunity. So the more people are aware of these things and they take advantage of them, the more they can sort of move forward with the incentives that are going to help really lower the cost and access the savings on the other side. And that's a really important part of this as well. And so you can see on this slide some different characteristics of the households in LA County as an example, but also kind of how much people would be eligible for and how much they would be sort of taking on in total costs after the rebates are netted out. So just the last thing to say about this overall is that there's a lot of opportunity to kind of take the benefit, and households will be critical in doing that. But I think there's a lot to say about these being better machines, period. And I don't know, Billy, if you want to talk at all about that with respect to sort of homeowner satisfaction once people are getting into these products.
Yeah, so this was one of my favorite results from the survey, which just showed how happy people are once they make the adoption decision. If you combine somewhat satisfied and very satisfied, all of the products we surveyed ranked higher than 90% or 90% and above, which is just an extraordinary figure for any type of consumer product. So across all of these different products, people are very happy. They would purchase the products again. And many of these products are contagious. They are referred by people to other people. So it's really on us as an industry to continue to deliver satisfaction, because we need people happy. We need them referring their friends and family to adopt these solutions as well. So this was a great finding from the survey.
I want to open up Q&A for the remaining few minutes that we have. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should have a QA symbol. And while you're submitting your questions, one of the questions that came in was about getting the recording post-webinar, which we will be sending the recording and materials after today's discussion, and appreciate you dropping any questions that you have into the Q&A, and we'll start rolling through those in the remaining time we have. Looks like we have one here. On the rollout of rebates, the question is, do you have concerns about slow rollout of rebates in the states? And I'll direct that to Ari.
Sure. Obviously, the best answer would be that the law passed on a whatever day of the week. It was signed on another day of the week, and then the next day there were rebates. But that's not how it works, of course, because this is a new program and it takes time to pull the pieces together. And so we're now in a place where the Department of Energy, the U.S. Department of Energy, has put out the call to states to design their programs and come forward. And that is in process now, and we do expect these programs to start rolling out next year. I would love to see them moving faster, but it's also really important for us overall that these programs work well when they do roll out, because and I think many people have had experiences with this, rebate programs that are sort of rolled out to the market that aren't well designed or aren't well implemented or aren't well understood. don't get used all that well. And it becomes sort of an impediment to closing an opportunity for a contractor or for a household to take advantage of an opportunity with respect to these incentives if they're too hard to use. And so I would trade a couple of months on one end to get a much better experience and broader adoption on the other. And that's my hope that that's what's happening now.
We have another question here, specifically to personal home electrification journey. Do either one of you have a personal story you want to share about your electrification journey yourself?
Sure, I'll go first. Our family moved to Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, and we have had an electric vehicle for a number of years, but we moved into a 100-year-old home that had virtually no work done on it over the last 40, 50 years. And we're excited about the project of electrifying our home. And it took us some time. We had to get a couple different contractors to do all of the different things. But we recently capped the gas line, so we have no gas in the home anymore. We have solar, heat pump, home battery, charger, electric dryer. And the one that I would say I'm sort of personally happiest about, even though it is probably the least significant from a climate perspective or a cost saving perspective, is the electric stove. Ever since I read about sort of the impact of indoor air pollution from gas stoves, you know, I have 2 kids, and I will say every time I use that stove, well, not every time I think about this, but more often than you might think, I'm like smiling and happy using my electric stove. And that's the one that I'm like sort of most evangelical about with friends and family. That again, it's sort of maybe a small first step, but a lot of folks can make that change, and it really improves indoor air quality, which matters a lot for us and our kids.
Well, I'll go in the way back machine. I just celebrated a birthday, so I'm like aware that I'm going further and further in the way back machine with every year. But when I first graduated from college, I was living in New England, and I moved into the first floor of a house on sort of the other side of town, and basically in an apartment I could afford. And that apartment was $650 a month. I remember this very, very clearly. And it was heated by oil. It had oil heating and radiators. And in the kitchen, which didn't have any radiators, it actually had a side-by heater and the stove that was a gas heater to support that. And 2 things happened that sort of, in essence, I think really catalyzed this journey for me personally. One was it was cold winter because it was New England, and I got the first bill from the Du Bois Oil Company, and the bill was $650 for the month, in addition to the $650 in rent. And I had no way to pay that amount of an oil bill. So I had to go on a payment plan, and learn very clearly how inefficient oil heating is and how expensive it is for people and families. The other thing that happened was I started getting headaches, actually, in the winter time, and maybe I thought it was related to the bill that I got from the oil company. But some friends came to visit me, and they said, you know what? It smells in here. It smells like gas. And it turned out that the side-by heater in the kitchen was leaking. It had a slow leak, and I was suffering the impact of that leak in a very real way. And so, I think that for me, what this all represents is an opportunity for us to invest in people's homes so that families can have better, safer, more comfortable experiences that cost them less money. It's a pretty good thing to be working on. And it's a pretty good thing to try to make happen. And I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to do this and to partner with you all in doing so.
We are going to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for all of your great questions. This a recording again is going to be made available post webinar today, along with some materials, and really want to give a warm thank you to Ari and Billy for taking the time to have this discussion, and for our partners engaging in the questions and attending today's session. We really look forward to continuing these efforts to understand the homeowners' needs so we can all make electrification easy and more affordable. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.